Welcome to the Education Corner, a podcast by Education Choices magazine.
Education Corner podcast would like to welcome Mr. Andy Johnson, head of Truro School in Cornwall. Established in 1880, Truro School is situated in southwest of England and offers a distinctive boarding experience amidst Cornwall's stunning landscapes and extensive coastline. Voted Boarding School of the Year finalist in the 2023 Independent Schools of the Year Award, the school offers an inspiring environment that celebrates academic success alongside personal growth. We're thrilled to have you with us, Andy. Do you tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to be head at Truro School?
Thanks, Chloe. It's absolutely fantastic to be able to chat with you. So thank you very much indeed for the very kind invitation. For me, being in Truro, it feels a little bit like I suppose I've educationally come home. I was a church school primary pupil as a child. I then got a part bursary to an independent school and was fortunate enough to study history at Cambridge. I did a teacher training degree in Leeds and my first teaching job was in Hertfordshire. From there, I spent 11 years at Westminster School in London and was a housemaster. Left Westminster to help set up an amazing free school in the East End of London in Newham called the London Academy of Excellence, which is a fantastic school. Spent 5 years after that at St Dunstan's College in Catford, which is a really splendid, holistic and values-driven 3 to 18 co-educational through school, which is actually in a lot of ways really quite similar to Truro, albeit in not nearly such a pretty environment. So my pathway, I suppose, has been really quite diverse. I've worked in state, independent, single-sex, co-educational, day and boarding, sixth form standalone schools, 3 to 18, Christian foundations, secular foundations, and worked with lots of really amazing and trailblazing people. Truro kind of feels, I suppose, to me a bit like a culmination of that journey, somewhere I can bring that experience and that educational ambition. And I do really see myself as an educationalist in that regard. I arrived here, ironically, in the middle of the pandemic, which was a bizarre time to start a job, but feels a long time ago now. And it's just such a wonderful place to be for me and indeed for my family, who get to grow up in an incredible part of the country.
So you've all moved there?
Yes.
It is a stunning school. On the school's website, you describe the ethos of the school as compassionate ambition. Could you explain what this means and tell us a little bit more about the ethos and values at Truro School?
Our school motto is, well, I suppose lots of schools have a little Latin motto, don't they? Ours is esse quam videre, which means to be rather than to seem to be. I suppose the essence of that is about children and indeed adults in the institution being able to flourish, being able to enjoy being and becoming the very best of themselves, not feeling they have to be a type or they have to be something someone else is telling them to be. And I think that for us comes from our Methodist foundation as a school, that belief that all are welcome and that we should be doing good with what we have and what we can do. The school is really, really blessed in that regard, actually. We've got all sorts of varied talent and varied commitment through the school, and it's not a hierarchy in that regard. And I suppose that's the compassionate side of this sense of ambition for everyone as an individual. But the compassion there is that we don't see certain types of excellence or certain types of ambition as being more or less worthy than others. There's a real sort of value set behind that. And that's really important. For me, endeavour matters at least as much as achievement does. And that I see as a very compassionate position, actually, as an educationalist. And I love the fact that children come here aged 11 and then they have this incredible, supported, opportunity-filled journey ahead of them when they can make right and wrong turns in an environment that's always going to try and believe in them and will always bring them back to the values that are going to underpin their successes in the future and not just now. So for me, that sense of compassionate ambition, it's about being ambitious and championing excellence in so many different ways. Of course it is, but it's actually about putting each child's journey and their vision of excellence at the centre of what we do. And that's the compassion at the heart of this.
What are the main entry points for children and families considering Truro School?
We have 11 plus and 13 plus admission. And at those points, it's selective based on entrance examination, school reports and interviews. At 11 plus, just under half our intake come from our lovely prep school, which is about 3 miles across town. And then just over half of our intake come from schools from all over Cornwall and all over the county, and indeed sometimes beyond. At sixth form, we have an admission which is based on GCSE predictions or grades or their equivalent, alongside school reports and interviews as well. Most children coming here are from families who are in Cornwall. Many travel significant distances to attend the school as well. Others move here or return to Cornwall from distant locations, and our boarding population makes up around about 8% of the school. And those boarders are coming from international locations, national locations, and locally as well, which is incredibly important actually to the school. It brings that real sense of wider reference points, which enriches the Cornish community hugely, actually.
Yeah, very much so. And probably brings some diversity as well. You're one of the few independent schools in Cornwall. What do you feel are the benefits of this location for the school and also for your students?
Yes, we are the only 3 to 18 co-educational independent through school in the whole of Cornwall. And I think actually the benefits of that are immense. Truro is a cathedral city, albeit a relatively small city, but it's still a city. All the benefits and the amenities of being in a city are here. But yet at the same time, we have within easy reach the north and south coasts, the moorlands of Bodmin and Penwith. It really is just an astoundingly beautiful part of the world. And that combination of being in an urban area, but having that on your doorstep is, I think, really quite precious. The educational experience that comes from that, I think, is also really quite unique. We can combine that sense of academic and pastoral excellence with the chance to be part of that locality and to be inspired to access the adventure that comes from being in this place. Our Outward Bound programme is incredibly popular and really successful. It sits alongside an astonishing range of clubs and activities that access this environment, from the sea to the moors, from the geology to the sustainability, everything. It's all here on our doorstep. And I think that combination, it's only possible, frankly, on the scale that we can offer it because we're here in Cornwall. And being the only school of this type for such a distance around us, I think that's also really, really valuable. It makes us uniquely placed, really, to have that relationship with the wider educational, cultural and the physical landscape of Cornwall where we are.
And there really is so many different places to visit. A big focus of our magazine is equality, diversity and inclusion. How do you implement this at Truro School and support pupils who may be struggling with things like mental health or neurodiversity, for example?
Yes, and it's a great focus to have as a magazine. So I applaud you for that as well. I think this has never, ever been more important. EDI work is always needed. It always will be. And the key, I think, for all of us is to try and really foster that sense of belonging. I sometimes feel we try to use the language of belonging as much as the language of inclusion. I think belonging has that sense that it speaks to people about how they can feel empowered, not just how they can feel involved. And that distinction, I think, is really, really important in any discussion around EDI and belonging. I think the fact that Cornwall and therefore our school is not as culturally diverse as some other parts of the UK, I mean, that's a fact. But actually, the way I see that is it creates all the more a responsibility. We have an absolute responsibility to champion diversity, and that's not always easy, but it's always important. And I've worked in some very, very diverse communities in parts of London and elsewhere. And the fact that we don't have that culturally here actually is extra responsibility. And that's certainly the way I view it. I think the global reference points that are brought to us by our borders in this space are very, very important. But EDI, in terms of race, in terms of culture, is not just about where you're from. It's about your identity. It's not just about nationalities. It's so much more than that. And that's incredibly important. I do think Cornwall, although it might not be as culturally diverse, Cornwall is actually incredibly economically diverse. And when we're talking about EDI, our admission as a school, it's not just from the independent sector. Our means-tested bursary awards program is actively trying to broaden the social diversity and the economic diversity of the school, which reflects Cornwall, and it should do. We have an active and a growing and a dedicated and fully supported pupil-led diversity group who are championing LGBTQ+, and all sorts of other valued minority voices in the school. And this is growing, and it's exciting, actually, to see the children driving this in the school, supported by us. And of course, true to our Methodist heritage, we speak a lot in the school about everyone feeling welcome. And that's integral to that Methodist foundation. And we're always looking to learn more. I suppose I said at the start of this answer that it's never done work, there's always more. We had a review that we commissioned last year around our SEND provision in the school. It's absolutely essential in the local and the national climate of increasing awareness, increasing recognition for disability, for neurodiversity, to be understanding what we are and how we can help. I think parents and children in that space have to fight incredibly hard all of the time. And schools should be fighting just as hard in that space too. You mentioned mental health as well. And I think actually a lot of that often is inextricably connected to EDI. There's such a big crossover there in any community, this school as much as others. And again, that's never been more important. And schools are operating in a climate, I mean, this is not just us, but schools, I think, nationally are operating in a climate of better recognition, more open discussion around mental health and well-being, and also in a context of stretched resources in the public sector. And that's a real feature for schools and means that the pastoral work in schools has to have a really clear focus in that space. We run what we call an AIC counselling programme, an advice, counselling, help and empathy programme. We have large numbers of our sixth formers who choose to train up for that. We have a majority of staff who've undertaken mental health first aid training. The school's pastoral system is really, really strong, partners very closely with families, with parents, and of course with the children. And that matters for the boarders too, maybe sometimes even more so for the boarders who are physically distant from their families. And it's so important, going back to that sense of belonging again, that the children here feel that they are in a place where they can belong and get support. And like EDI, it's not a space where we intend to be static. We've got ambitions to build a wellbeing centre in a couple of years' time. A building is not the solution to anything, but actually doing that will give us a bit of a focus. It will help us champion wellbeing even more dynamically than we are now. And I have to mention, I'll be told off by some of the children, I have to get a mention for Bumble as well. We have a school dog who is absolutely essential to our wellbeing team. He's also a bit of a minor celebrity.
What breed is he?
He's a black lab and he's
I've got
wonderful. I can see you looking round.
They're normally behind me, but I think because I'm doing the podcast, they've been locked out.
Yes, so Bumble is a symbol in some respect. I won't overplay that, but he's very important to the community.
Bless him. I bet he loves it. Now, it says on the website that you have an evolved approach to bursaries and scholarships. Would you like to tell me a little bit more what that means? And obviously you've already raised yourself, and it was something I would have raised. In Cornwall, there is wealth, but there is also extreme poverty. And I think Charles Dickens even visited Cornwall to see it firsthand. So could you tell me a little bit more about the bursaries that are available at Truro School?
Yes, absolutely. So a few years ago, I took the decision that what we were going to do as a school was to invest the resources that we used to be giving back to parents in the form of fee remission for scholarships, and actually stop doing that largely, and to invest those resources directly into the educational opportunities for the children. Part of that means, of course, going to our means-tested bursary provision. Now, bursaries and scholarships are not the same thing. So our means-tested bursaries are available to anybody who applies to the school, who meets our admissions requirements and cannot otherwise afford to be here. And that's really, really important in exactly the climate that you've described. But in terms of the scholarship money, the decision we took really was, rather than passing that money in chunks back to families, many of whom could actually afford the fees for the school, what we would be doing with that fee remission for scholarship is either putting it into our means-tested bursary award scheme, or in fact directly investing it in the scholarship opportunities for the children. Because I feel really strongly, actually, it's the children that should benefit from the fact that they've earned a scholarship, not necessarily directly the bank balances of the parents. That's a bit of a direct way of putting it, but it's the children we educate. So what we've done in that space, we've created enrichment and scholarship coordinator posts in the school, 2 of them, one for year 7 up to year 11 and one in the sixth form. Those coordinators obviously work with departments to help them map and put together their own enrichment programs, but also mentor the children who are scholars, give them time, give them direct support, help them to try and prioritize and channel their interests, because sometimes children in that space are so multi-talented and multi-engaged. Actually, what they need is that direct mentoring, that sense of personal development and prioritization. It's also a really fluid system as well, because a child under this system who is a phenomenal sports person or musician when they're 11 or 12 years old, they may actually, by the time they're 15, want to direct that passion towards art or towards drama. And the children under this system are not locked in to a narrowly defined scholarship, which has some sort of contractual arrangement associated with it. Actually, we have the freedom now to support the curiosity that those children have, to support their personal journeys through the school, investing in their opportunity in the school, rather than locking them in to an arrangement which has a fee jeopardy in it, based on an assessment that was made of them when they were 11, or when they were 13, when they arrived in the school. And I just feel, for us as a community, back to that sense of compassionate ambition, that's much, much more progressive, and it's putting the children first, actually, in terms of what we're trying to do with our scholarship program. It's early days, but it's working really, really well, and we're really, really pleased with the direction of that.
It sounds fantastic. And this edition of the magazine is focusing on boarding. I know that you've said that there's 8% boarders, but could you describe the boarding experience at Truro School and the benefits of this for the boarding community?
Absolutely. So we offer at Truro School comprehensive boarding provision, so full boarding, and we also offer weekly boarding and flexi boarding options to accommodate various pupil needs and schedules as well. And as you say, in a school of over 800 from year 7 to year 13, we've got a boarding community of around about 70. Actually, today, apparently, someone told us earlier, today literally is World Boarding Staff Day. Now, I didn't know this either, but I've got to get this in. So I'm going to put a shout out right now to all of my team for the work that they do for our boarding community and the children. But anyway, that's a slight aside, but they work tremendously hard and they're super, super caring. The boarding experience here, therefore, with that scale, it's extremely bespoke. And the boarding communities we have, both the boys' boarding houses and the girls' boarding houses, and obviously their separate houses, they forge really, really strong home-from-home bonds across year groups, not just within year groups. And we're really proud of that. And that comes from that sense of a very bespoke arrangement, which is not sort of industrial in scale. Our borders are local, national and international. And the international borders come from a huge variety of countries worldwide. Again, a real diversity there. We're not focused on a particular part of the globe. It genuinely is representative of many, many different continents. And that brings a wonderful sense of globalism into the school and into Cornwall. And like any strong boarding school, and there are many, we operate a very busy evening and weekend program, both on and off site. Of course, we have that advantage of accessing everything about Cornwall, as I've described earlier. I suppose for me, what makes our offer so exciting, and I think really quite special, beyond all those generic strengths, is that Cornish connection, that bespoke offering in Cornwall. For our local boarders, many of their families choose to live in Cornwall in its beauty, but work away from Cornwall. That's a lifestyle choice. It's one that we want to support and we want to cater for. And that's one dynamic within our boarding community. For our national boarders from elsewhere in the UK, many of those are families who've discovered Cornwall and they love Cornwall and all the opportunities in it. And we can offer to those families the quality of academic and pastoral education that they would be getting in the home counties, with the opportunity actually to live here and to be in Cornwall all year round. And frankly, at a sort of Cornish price point as well. I mean, our boarding offering is amazing value, actually, particularly when you look at even the day fee offerings of some parts of the home counties and the rest of the country. For our international boarders, I think that opportunity to be really known as an individual, that bespoke experience, that family community, I think that's incredibly important. I think sometimes children can be put in very, very large boarding operations, and that's not right for every child. So to be in a smaller and more bespoke family-based environment where the children are mixing across year groups, not just within year group, building that sense of almost sibling relationship and familial relationship in those environments, as well as just your own year group. And the children in the boarding houses, they socialize, they cook together. They have social spaces they share, they study, they enjoy all the activities around the school, supported by very, very experienced and caring staff body. I think that the opportunities offered by Cornwall, actually, in this context, are really quite spectacular. And if I'm being very, very honest, I also think they're pretty good value as well.
Truro School has a unique sixth form diploma Spire scheme. Could you tell us a bit about this and its benefits?
Yes, this was an innovation that we introduced into Truro School just over 2 years ago, and it's proving really empowering actually for our sixth formers. I've always felt that as an independent school, you should be doing something with your independence. If you're not doing something with your independence, then I think you're missing a trick. And this is, I suppose, just one example of where we've tried to innovate. We've tried to use our ability to be independent to forge something which we think is really helpful for the young people in our care. So having worked myself for some time in some very, very successful state and independent sixth form contexts, I've always felt that actually there's got to be a middle way between offering sixth formers that depth and specialism, which is how A-level essentially manages itself, whilst also offering and ensuring that young adults remain broad, they remain challenged and engaged outside of their comfort zones in a way that the IB can sometimes offer, but again, can actually end up being really quite restrictive and prescriptive. So our diploma is a very deliberate strategy to put a framework around an A-level program, which continues to support that depth, that specialism that so many children love about sixth form, but also ensures that breadth of personal development, that skill development, that future empowerment. And it sort of hardwires, I suppose, into the sixth formers experience, the soft skills. Now, all schools with great co-curricular programs and wider programs offer that. But actually what we do with the diploma is we help the children in the sixth form to evidence it, to track it, to make decisions about their ambitions and make that program through the diploma bespoke to their ambition. And I've seen children do extraordinary things, either through the EDQ or through massive open online courses, picking and spotting things which separate them from the crowd, and they can evidence it when they're looking at employment opportunities or further education beyond. So the program is designed to build and evidence that sense of flexibility and empowerment, thinking beyond a child's point in school and giving that breadth of challenge and engagement, whilst also at its core preserving everything that's fantastic about the opportunity to be really, really in-depth and rigorous about A-level study. We're really, really pleased with it. In the time that we've operated it, our sixth form numbers have increased quite considerably. It's fantastic. And actually what we're doing now is borrowing some of that pedagogy and that educational thinking. We've just introduced a middle years program. We call it Middle Years Portfolio from year 9 to year 11, which borrows from some of this. And again, that's a phase, I think, in a student's life in school where you can become completely dominated by the spectre of GCSEs and assessments. And why shouldn't a school put a similar kind of framework around that phase? And that's absolutely what we're doing. And it borrows from the success of the diploma itself.
And partnerships, I know it's a big thing, certainly with the London-based schools, but I'm sure that you too have partnerships with local schools that benefit the experience of your pupils.
Yes, absolutely. And for us at Truro School, I think our partnership work is very exciting. It's also actually really quite humbling at points too. I absolutely see our school as part of many wider communities in Cornwall and that Cornish community. Because we're so unique in that landscape, we have to be. It's absolutely essential. And what's great about really, really good partnerships is that everybody's equal. Everybody's seeking to work together to benefit everybody. There's no hierarchy there. And that's what's at the heart of really, really exciting partnerships. Educationally, yes, there's lots we do with local schools, with conferences, with training, with resource sharing, staff masterclasses, and more than that. But it goes, I think, at a bigger level. I sit on a really quite innovative committee called the Cornwall Education Partnership, which brings together educational leaders across the whole county, from the multi-academy trust, from the local authority, from the state sector. We think we're the only actually county in the country that's doing anything like this at the moment. But I represent the independent sector on this committee, and directly or indirectly, that group represents every child in the whole of our county who have compulsory school age in education. And we talk about education in Cornwall, we talk about that wider landscape, and that's exactly what all of us around that table want to be focused on. And this school has to play a part in that. I think more broadly than those educational partnerships, our philanthropy work in the community is strong, and you'd expect that of a school. But again, that sense of giving time, not just giving, but actually partnering with local interests and charities is incredibly important. Sports-wise, we have some extraordinary partnerships. We work with Saint Southwest with their football programme, Truro Fencing Club and the National Fencing Centre, the Squash Club, Cornwall Cricket, who have a relationship with the Rajasthan Royals, local rugby, hockey and athletics clubs. We sail out of St Mawes. That's a holiday reference for lots of people, but it's our week. That's what we do. And there's so much more in that space. And actually, sport is a real motivator for a lot of individuals and families in this school. And those partnerships help us there. We have a cookery school, which we operate in conjunction with the Leith School of Food and Wine, and that's an amazing opportunity. Again, particularly for young people who may want to go not just into cookery, but into hospitality. It's a fantastic route into that sector. And our creative arts is another space where our partnerships are growing. Right now, actually, as I speak, we've got a partnership with the Royal Cornwall Museum, and we've got the school's art collection, which was begun in the 1960s, is being exhibited for community and educational use in the centre of Truro at the moment, and that's what it should be doing. We run a summer festival every year, bringing in community groups. We work with the Hall for Cornwall in that space as well. And maybe I suppose the headline partnerships we have in music. I mean, music is astonishing here, but we work with Truro Cathedral. The boy and girl choristers who sing at the cathedral are educated in our school. Some of those girls last year were invited to sing in Westminster Abbey as part of the coronation. I'll just drop that in there. It was extraordinary and a real testimony to that partnership and their talent. But actually, for me, with the music, having said that, I think for me, one of the most exciting partnerships we have musically is with a charity called the Cornwall Music Services Trust. We host their offices in the school. They provide music teaching, support and music therapy for around 10,000 children in over 240 school settings across Cornwall at a time when music is being stripped out of curriculums and resourcing in a lot of schools. And actually, that's the sort of partnership which is educational in its broadest sense. I feel, I suppose, that partnership work in that way, clearly it benefits those who are directly involved from any angle. But actually more than that, being part of a community which has those things happening in it, it raises aspirations, it raises ambitions, it shows what can be done, and it encourages that sense of community awareness. And again, I suppose that brings me back to that sense of compassionate ambition.
So it's a very impressive repertoire. Your greatest achievement or the thing that you're most proud of in your time at Truro School so far, what would that be?
Oh, I'm not quite sure what to pick here. I'm just super proud of the school and the children in it and the staff and what the school's achieving. We're the highest A-level provider in Cornwall. We're very proud of it, but actually more than that, I think what I'm really proud of academically is not just that we're the top A-level provider in Cornwall, it's the fact that our post-18 leavers go on into the institutions or the routes through employment or training that they're choosing. Our success rate with where the children go at that point is very, very high. And those destinations are hugely diverse. Yes, there's Oxbridge. We've had a student go to Harvard last year, musical conservatoires, stage shows, it's all there. Apprenticeships, philanthropy work. But actually what I'm really proud of is that those ambitions get fulfilled in this school and that they're equally valued by the school. It's not a hierarchy in that space. I'm really proud of the co-curricular programme and the sporting programme in the school. And again, yes, there are real highlights in there, but it's the level of engagement, which as an educationalist really excites me. We ran a 5-night run of Les Miserables last year, which was just fantastic. I think I cried at the end when I thanked everybody, and I can't believe I've just said that in a podcast, but I did. It was just so moving. It was wonderful. But what was lovely about it was we had enough appetite and interest in the school to run 2 parallel casts, all the main parts in Les Mis. We could run 2 students for every main part through that. That's the depth of interest and talent that's in the school. And in our festival in the summer, we see children coming on stage who've never performed before, next to those who've done it every year for 5 years. We have a charity concert this week on Wednesday, and there are Year 7 children who are going to be on stage for the first time ever, next to people who've sung their hearts out for 6 or 7 years in the school. That's what I really find inspiring about the school. And the same is true of our sport as well. We have individual and team successes that we do shout about, but actually have a level of engagement. And it's true of the boarding just as much. It's a real hidden gem that the boarders here can access that kind of environment, and it can be that sort of platform for them. And I come back every time here when I think about what I'm proud of about the school, come back to that sense. I am an educationalist. I've always been an educationalist. And I love the idea of a school which has a real values-based underpinning to all of this, where we can challenge and support and inspire the children to be who they want to be in that kind of environment with that kind of ambition in what is a beautiful and wonderful part of the country.
Really is. And what are your plans or hopes for future? I'm sure you've got some for Truro School.
Absolutely. We continue, I suppose, this sort of pursuit of excellence in its broadest possible sense. I mean, that has to be what a great educational institution is trying to do. We want to be, and I think we are, offering a genuinely very dynamic and empowering educational journey. And that's something we're very, very proud of. I think the importance of that educational journey for the children, not to be too fixated on destinations and outcomes, but that comes from the journey being right and for the journey being empowering. And that's absolutely our focus, along with continuing to forge and build those community links. In practical terms, I think there probably are some specific things that we're very excited about that sort of embody that ambition. We've just launched a project that will see us build a new music centre, which will be a hub for the school, but actually also for community music as well. We're going to use it to try and strengthen not just the school's community music life, but also actually the musical opportunities for children and others across the whole of the county. And that's very deliberately the agenda. It's a multi-million-pound build. We're due to finish it at the start of 2026. And we're going to refurbish our multi-use hall for that purpose as well. But actually what that project does, as well as kind of embodying a lot of what we're trying to achieve education as a school, it's going to pave the way for us to work on our wellbeing centre. It's being designed to improve site safety and sustainability. There's so many aspects to that, which I think really kind of encapsulate what is, again, that sense of ambition in the school, but also the compassion that's behind it.
Thank you so much, Andy. I have visited Truro School many times and I hope to visit again, but it is such an exciting place and a truly wonderful part of the world. Thank you very much for your time.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for giving me the chance to speak about a school that I'm very passionate about. Thanks, Chloe.